Thank you so much for joining me. First off, I know you're in Nashville today, but how's your day been? How are the girls and how are you?
I am just coming off of a 3-day event that I had for my company. And so I'm spent, to be honest. Um, but I'm also excited because I just got so inspired by, what I just created and made happen these past 3 days. So I kind of have like this little fire under my butt to just
hmm
keep on grinding it out and create more of these, amazing experiences for women. So a little tired, but a little excited.
Can you share what you've been doing the last few days?
Yeah, so it was really an appreciation event to be just, the highest level where I just wanted to thank not only my clients, but my amazing friends and business women that have inspired me over these past 2 years and just bring them all together in beautiful spaces and just love on them and appreciate them and, gift them with my favorite things that I love. We did an education piece on perimenopause and menopause and hormones. And, then we did yoga and we just connected in person. And I was able to let everybody know like how much they have affected me and that I'm forever grateful for them trusting me to guide them in this journey.
Sounds like a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, so I think if people saw you from the outside and did not, they just saw like maybe your Instagram as a screenshot or whatnot, they would think, "Dang, she's been doing this for years." But really, your health and wellness journey and being a health coach is relatively new to you. What was the transformation, or why did you decide to make this pivot to a new career choice, a new lifestyle change, leave an old business that you created? What kind of spurred that for you?
Sure. First of all, I've always been, super into health and wellness. I mean, my entire life. Was an athlete to start when I was young and then, kind of continued that throughout adulthood. And I always felt fine. I always felt good. I didn't, I was just always self-conscious of what I ate and how I worked out and just really wanted, to be as healthy as I could be. And then I had these two beautiful little girls and I'm, trying to raise them, trying to still hold on to some sense of normalcy and who I am. And then still trying to find the time to, work out and in self-care and also then approaching your 40s. So all of these things just start to hit you like just all at once. You're just getting slapped around and you don't really know what the heck to do. And so I found myself at 42 years old, just not feeling great in my skin and looking
hmm
great. And I got to this point where I'm like, so is this what we're supposed to do? We're just supposed to throw in the towel and like just accept that we're aging and we're not looking the same, we're not feeling the same. I'm like, this can't be. I'm not going to go out without a fight. And I'm going to figure out how I can still continue to feel the best, feel sexy and just kind of get my mojo back.
hmm
So I went down this Instagram rabbit hole, of course, and
As we all do at times.
and I'm looking at these women that are in their 40s and there weren't a lot of them but there were women who were transforming their bodies kind of even better than what they looked like in their 20s and they had this beautiful tone and they were glowing and so strong and powerful. And I'm like, I've lifted weights my whole life. I've done all the classes. I've done all the things. Like, what are they doing differently?
hmm
What am I not figuring out? I have prided myself my whole life on being able to figure out everything. Like if there was something wrong, I'd figure it out. I'd cure myself. I'd, do whatever I had to do to make it work. And this was one thing that I just could not figure out. I was doing all the things I did in my 20s and my 30s, and nothing was working. And I felt worse. So I continued to research, and it really came down to weight training and macros. And I attempted to change up a bunch of things by myself. I still couldn't figure it out. I remember falling to my knees, just so frustrated, like, how am I putting in so much work and looking and feeling worse? The next day I hired a coach, and she changed my life.
So your
And it was,
inspiration to your business?
yeah, and she's now my head trainer and works for me.
All right. Full circle moment
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And I couldn't have done any of that without her. So yeah, I think it's just kind of coming to that point, like, okay, I clearly have to do something different. And
Hmm.
what is that going to be? And so, you ask about the career pivot and kind of like the transformation. And so then I was so blown away by actually what I needed to be doing versus what I was doing.
Hmm.
And once I made those changes, and it's not like it's some crazy thing, it's just we aren't doing it right. We aren't putting together the magic formula properly because we were told so many different things for decades.
Hmm.
And so then, because I'm a businesswoman and I've always had different companies, I had my MBA when I was 21 years old and just continue to, start businesses. Since then, I'm like, I need to scream this to as many women that will possibly listen to me. I need to just help women, because if they know what I know, it's going to change their life. So I
Hmm.
went back to school, got my health and coaching degree, and I started this company.
That's incredible. I mean, for people to think too, it's not like you're old, but like you went back to school in your 40s. Some people would think like they couldn't do that.
I know. I mean, and if you look, there's always those posts on Instagram that say, Warren Buffett started,
Hmm.
whatever. They go through all the CEOs and the ages, and, Martha Stewart didn't start until she was 50 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's because we can continue to evolve. We can continue, to change and grow. And actually, we should. Like, we should never stop. And, age should not matter in that journey. Because we still have half of our life left to live. We only lived the part where we were these like younger versions, of who we're meant to be. And I always say, like, you give me a freaking woman in her 40s that like had to go through some shit and has kids and aging parents and a husband and house problems and travel sports, like she can accomplish anything.
Yep.
Like, I am grateful that those women are my clients.
With uh with your history, you mentioned you grew up playing sports. What were the sports you grew up playing?
So soccer and softball were my main, but I was a swimmer because my mother is a swimming teacher. So I
Nice.
could swim before I could walk. And I was really good at swimming, and I did it competitively. And then, but it just wasn't, I just didn't, it wasn't my thing competitively. I just was more of, a team sport, I
Hmm.
think, kind of girl. So I just focused on soccer and softball.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a team sport type of person. What was what was the thing? What were a few of the things that you were doing that your coach got you to change? The where you started to see like, oh shit, this is actually working.
I think two key things. One, I wasn't doing a progressive overload approach to
Mm,
strength training. And
yeah.
so, you know, you can be in the gym every day lifting those same 10-pound dumbbells. You're never going to see your body change.
Hmm.
And so, with progressive overload, you are constantly, breaking down the muscle by either increasing your reps or your weight. over time. So, you want to kind of increase, if you did 10 reps the last week, you want to try to increase that or increase the weight so that you are breaking down those muscle fibers so that they're then able to grow by eating. And then you have to eat enough protein and let them rest. So that's the only way that muscle is really made. You break it down, you overstimulate it by, lifting heavier than what you were used to. Because like when you say lift heavy, this confuses people, but it's all relative to where you're at. So don't just listen to somebody say you have to lift heavy, you have to lift heavy, and then start trying to like squat 140 pounds when you're, a woman that's never squatted before. You can get there for sure, but you have to start and you have to progressively overload,
Hmm.
over weeks, over months, over years to even get to that place. And so that was the first main thing, is that I simply was lifting the same amount of weights that I've always been.
Yep. I think that's such an important piece for so many people because I fall, victim to that too, where I just will do the same workout for like a couple weeks straight. And I'm like, damn, like because you get used to it. You're in your
Yep.
routine. You go to the same class, but you're not really, you're lifting the
Oh,
same
your
thing.
body is just the smartest thing out there and it adapts so quickly. And you got to constantly challenge it.
Yeah, my wife went to class or the gym this morning. She came home and said she had two PRs today. I was like, damn, look
Mm-hmm.
at you getting
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
stronger.
that's the things you start to look for. Mm-hmm.
With with that, you start seeing some changes, and I don't know what you're doing exactly at that moment in your career, but was it pretty quickly when you were like, all right, I gotta go back to school now, or I gotta figure out how to reach the masses or reach women because I know they need to know the things that you know now.
Yeah, I mean, it really was so quickly after when I actually was vulnerable enough to post my before and after, and even acknowledge what I was doing. Because how I kind of roll is I just do stuff silently and I don't talk about it at all. Like nobody will know anything that's going on with me, and I'll just be, in the background, um, working on myself. And then it's like, she comes out of out of the forest and is like this new person. And so people were like, oh my goodness, you really put your head down and were able to transform your body in 12 weeks. And when I say 12 weeks, I don't want people to have unrealistic expectations, because I'm continuing to change my body. And I didn't have a ton of fat to lose to start with. So like when you're talking about transformations, just everybody remember that everybody's journey is totally different as far as time frames, and it will be reflective on how much fat you have to lose.
Hmm.
So
I think
just
I went back and looked
sidebar.
one of your posts, like you posted a transformation of multiple pictures from I don't know, maybe when you were 42 to now or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask you. I mean, you're probably more confident and feel better in your skin now than maybe you've done in your t entire life.
Oh, I mean, I am just like, I am woman, hear me roar. I feel sexy. I feel confident. I feel like I can conquer the world.
You and my sister would get along. She's a business owner. She's super active, fit, competitive. She hates losing. She does very well in the business world, but she's kind of got that same attitude. With with the family, how has it been balancing raising two girls and growing a new business? Like how have you on your own daily routine tried to manage that?
Yeah, right. That's like the biggest question, where we are like, how are we going to do all of this? And the reality is, and I know this isn't it for every single person and family, but the mother carries the majority of just the load, this load that everybody talks about, that this invisible load. And so it's not easy.
Hmm.
It's not. And some days you're great, and at certain things, and some days, you're better at the other things. And Sarah Michelle Gellar said this to me one time, and I'll never forget it. And I think she's talked about this publicly, but it's like you have your six boxes of life. I think she said, like, you know, family, like significant kids, significant other, friends, health and wellness, social life, whatever they
Hmm.
were. We're never going to be great at all of them every single day. And if you could just pick three, a day to just be like, okay, I'm going to nail this instead of like trying to spread yourself so
Hmm.
thin. So that's really kind of how I go about it. Um, and I try to compartmentalize my boxes of life,
Hmm.
because all of these boxes to me are so important. I mean, if I didn't have the support of my friendships and, these amazing women who are supporting me, I would not be where I am. So friendship is such an important piece for me. Being present with my children is such an important piece. And, clearly like the health and wellness piece is so important, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to regulate my nervous system, that's always needing regulating because
Sure.
of all of, these crazy things. So, but you get it done. You figure out a way. And I think because I was so passionate about it, that I was almost like high on life working, and it didn't seem like it was a mundane
Hmm.
like task that I had to do. I'm so grateful that I get to do this every day, and I get excited, about every aspect of this job. So that is not lost on me.
Sure. No, I think that's a goal. That's like a goal for everybody. If they
Yeah.
can wake up and do what they're doing and just be excited about it and it doesn't feel like a job, it's
Yeah.
then you've figured out something right in your life.
Then
With
you then you scale it, and then you make money in your sleep, and you're really just crushing.
all right, let's pivot to that. So you decide to really quickly,
Oh
you
yes.
see these changes and you're like, dang, all right, I got to make this a business. I'm gonna make this so I can reach as many individuals, as many women as possible to kind of feel the feeling you were getting at that moment. What's your first step in that business venture?
So I'm lucky enough to have, like I've been saying, these amazing women around me that inspire me. And one of my dearest friends, her name's Julie Solomon, and this is what she does. She does, online
Hmm.
um, business coaching for women, and she teaches, women how to kind of pivot into it. And so we were on a walk one day, and I was just kind of telling her, about my idea, and she was like, if people immediately start selling something, if people are asking you for something, immediately start selling something. Do not wait until you have this beautiful shiny product or course or whatever it is. Like, just start selling. And so I think the lesson for me too, though, is like I had her telling me that, but I think you also then get that imposter syndrome where you're like, is this really like what I should be doing? Am I an expert? Why is anybody going to listen to me? And I think once I removed that from my brain and said, why not me?
Hmm.
Every single thing changed. Like every single thing totally flipped on its head. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Like all these other people are doing it. I'm just as educated. I I can do it. I have a good business sense. I think I can, relate to these women. Why not me?
Hmm. With
And
the
yeah.
No, with that, were you starting to post more on social media? Like, how were you marketing? What was that part?
So once I yeah, so my social media had nothing to do with health and wellness. I was doing interior design at the time, and I really didn't even. I mean, my Instagram. I mean, I hadn't posted on Instagram in 3 months, and then I posted my before and after, and kind of explained like the journey and why I did it, and how I wanted to feel great in my own skin, and it resonated with people like crazy. It was bananas. People were just messaging me, "What did you do? Oh my goodness." I want to do it. And so I started offering little consultations. Like, click here. There was a Calendly link, and it was like $150. You get a consultation, and I forget what I gave them. I think like a workout plan or something.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It was just, again, something so small. And that was at the end of 2022.
Not long ago at all. That's so
No.
crazy.
And then I just go big or go home. And so, and with like the, inspiration from Julie and just other women that I know in this space, I really took it seriously. I hired my own coach to kind of guide me on how to do all of this back end stuff, because that's really what it comes down to is the tech
Hmm.
and understanding how to develop these courses and what platforms are you using and how do you do it. And I mean, there's so much involved, and I had to develop my own app, and I had to put in all of these automation systems and funnels, and it was
It's
crazy to think,
complicated. Yeah.
so overwhelming. And so yeah, I hired a coach that was supposed to be a 6-month program. Within 4 weeks I had everything rolled out and made a bunch of money the first
Plenty of
month.
money.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that in your with your health and wellness for your own self, you're starting this business and it's starting to explode a little bit. Are you still taking time for yourself on a daily basis? Was that difficult once you saw the momentum of your business to also be like, dang, I got to make sure I continue to focus on my well-being and my mental health and things that are going on in your life?
No, I love that question. And it's just a non-negotiable for me. And I think because I am a recovering overachiever, just, pushing too hard and not making time for myself to make
Hmm.
sure that I'm regulated and just kind of, burning, the fumes and all that. I told myself this time I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to do it as I can handle it. I have these two beautiful, girls that need me, and I'm not going to get overwhelmed and try to push it and make it happen too fast. And so I would just, like breathe, and I would close my eyes, and I'm like, okay, Pam, like what do you have the capacity to handle right now? What can we roll out to where you're generating income, but you're still able to be like a cool freaking person. Like I
Hmm.
want to see my friends. I want to travel. I want to, be with my kids. I don't want to be a psycho. I don't want to be, like I'm too old for that at this point. I feel like, I mean, I did that. So no, I prioritize self-care every single day. I mean, I don't miss a workout.
What's
Mm-mm.
your workout schedule like? I know we talked about progressive overload and weightlifting, but do you take classes anymore? Do you do strictly cardio days? Like, talk me through maybe a week of what you do for workouts.
Yeah, so I do a 4-day split. I do a push day, a pull day, and 2 leg days. And then I have programmed in a full body kind of bonus day, because for me, I love, weight training so much that like on that Friday when I don't have anything planned,
Hmm.
I don't know what to do sometimes.
That's how
So
I feel. All right.
yeah, and cardio is just not my thing anymore. I mean, I definitely get my heart rate up, and I do cardio, and I focus on my step count more so than cardio.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm like, I have to do something, what should I do? Because I'm already doing, so to answer your question, I have those 4 days. So Friday's my bonus day. I don't have to do it, but it's there. I can take a Pilates class instead. I can maybe just, walk for a long time. I have to do something. But you also need recovery, right? So then you have to, find these low impact things that I call like the accessories to my program, which yoga, Pilates, walking. Um, yeah, I mean, I shoot for the, 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day in the winter. I sometimes I don't get that. But I think what people don't realize is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and that things can interchange. And um, and that's what we really try to teach in our program, because I think women are so like, oh my goodness, I did not hit this, I did not hit that. Now I'm going to go down a spiral and just self sabotage for the next week because they already think they messed up. And then that week turns into 3 weeks, 3 weeks turns into 3 months, 3 months turns into a year. And then we get to this place and we're like, what the heck just happened? How did I get here? And that's how you got there, because
Hmm.
we're trying to be too perfect. And so that is like the main thing that I just love helping women through is like, actually, you don't have to do this 4 days. If you have something going on, let's figure it out. We can do a 3 day split. We can actually do a 2 day superset. Like there's options for everything.
Hmm.
And that's what we need, especially my client base. They need to know that and they need to really understand that.
Yeah. With are you going to like a Gold's Gym, or like are you going to a CrossFit gym? Where do you go to work out?
So I'm so fortunate that my next door neighbor, who are my great friends, they turned their 3 car garage into a gym.
That's incredible. That's a
I mean, our
dream.
driveways are connected. And so, I have the code. I just go in there whenever I want. They don't even know I'm in there. But I also work out at the Soho House. I have a bunch of clients that go there, so I'll go there, a day or two and just kind of have that human connection.
Yeah, that's what I was about to
I
say.
can
Like,
become
do
a
you need
recluse
that?
real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I can
could.
too.
Yeah,
Um, but I do like. I think my family's helped me out with this, and I could be a recluse and just work out on my own forever. But like my sister goes to a CrossFit gym. It's now called Reaction Fitness, so it's more of, they've lost the CrossFit part of it. But my parents go there now. My wife goes there, and like I'm like, all right, this is kind of fun. We got a
so
community.
fun.
Like
I
to
love that.
interact
A
a little
family
bit.
affair.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally. But it's interesting because I feel like some people were like me, where they would just go to the gym, put headphones on, not talk to anybody. But I think it's interesting once they get part of the community. I think they last longer.
Sure,
They feel more accountable to
sure.
show up for their friends because they know people will be at the classes and that sort of thing. With with blood work and maybe supplements,
Mhm.
how often are you checking maybe your blood work or your hormone levels? And do you switch up your supplements? And what are some of the more important ones for you?
No, that's a great thing to talk about. So when I first started doing really detailed blood panels, I I think there was like 2 rounds there where I did do it every 3 months
Hmm.
because you really want to see what's kind of working for you. So let me think how old. So I think at 44 was when I did my first full blown panel of all the hormones, every single thing you can imagine. And that led me to see what my individual body needs,
Hmm.
because again, we're all so different. So like, maybe I need iron, but maybe somebody else doesn't. And so when we are just guessing and not testing, that's my thing. Like, don't guess, let's test.
Hmm.
We have no idea what our body needs. No idea. So we're just throwing all these supplements into our body and, number one, wasting money.
Sure, you don't know what you're taking. Yeah.
No. And so I just love like the personalized approach. Now, listen, are there a number of supplements that I believe every woman should be taking? Yes. But then when you get down to the nitty gritty of like really detailed things, um, if you don't need it, you don't have to be taking it.
Hmm.
So now I test every 6 months.
Yeah, I do think that's important because people will just take random supplements and they don't know if it's actually what they need or not.
Oh
So
yeah.
they might still not feel a difference, or they might not know, but they could be taking, vitamin D and they have plenty of vitamin D, or they don't
Oh.
have, it's just
Well,
randomly
and the
shooting in the wind.
craziest thing is that if you don't have a number of things going on in your body, the your absorption rate is also super important because you can be taking all of these supplements, but your body's not absorbing them because you're
Hmm.
not taking them with the right combination. Like if you don't have a vitamin D and a omega, like a krill oil or something like that, to properly absorb these expensive supplements that you're
Hmm.
taking, you're getting such a small percentage of them. And
Yep.
then that leads into gut health. Also, if your gut health is out of whack, that's causing a very low absorption rate as well. And so 9 times out of 10, there's all kinds of different things happening within your body. And just pop in a few supplements because you think you need them, like that's not gonna help you
Hmm.
because
No.
the girl on Instagram is saying that this is like the good thing to do. It's just I think you end up wasting money in the long run. You might as well just invest in
I
yourself and
agree.
really see, what's going on. So,
You're right, because it's not cheap either. Like you start just piling on the supplements. Next thing you know, you're spending a couple $100 a month on
oh yeah.
supplements, and you might not even know if they what you need, which is crazy. With with nutrition, um, I know everybody's different, and what sometimes with different types of uh, foods, they might react to different people differently. But is there kind of a base thing that you go through with your clients or the people you work with of, protein intake, hydration, maybe bigger breakfasts, and maybe not as much of a dinner, like that sort of stuff that you work through?
Sure. So, my main program that is kind of like my signature, it's called Bringing Sexy Back. That is a customized program where we are looking at, you fill out these very detailed questionnaires, and we are looking, I'm like getting into your body basically, and I'm meeting you where you are. So when you're listing out things you like, you're listing out what you're eating every day. You're listing out things you can't, live without. I mean, it's so detailed. And then I kind of am this little like wizard, and I go in there and I move everything around and I piece it all together. And I try to get the optimal breakdown if we're doing like a fat loss kind of muscle gain approach. My goal is a 40-40-20 split. So 40, percent macro protein, 40% carbs, 20% fat. And that won't be like that forever, but to get optimal, like and most people when they go through my program, I mean, they have to lose fat.
Hmm.
We're just trying to gain, muscle, do those newbie gains at the beginning,
Sure.
losing that fat, gaining that muscle. However, so I say that, but then if I have somebody that I can see that they're only eating 60 grams of protein right now, I'm
Hmm.
never going to tell them that tomorrow they have to start eating 140 grams of protein. It's
Sure.
not going to happen. So we'll just take like a really, kind of tiered approach to get people to those numbers. Because the reality is, if you just start eating more, that's what we need. We just need you
Hmm.
to keep, to eat more than what you are probably currently eating. Um, so to answer your question, yes, like I have all of these types of I guess like this blueprint that, in a perfect life, yes, this is what we would have people do, but we know that this isn't perfect. Not everybody's the same. And so that's the beauty of the customization is I'm able to not only help you attain your goals, but sustain it. Because if I'm going to give you a plan and some crazy ass numbers that you're never going to be able to maintain, like
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. You're never going to continue this as a lifestyle, and that is my goal.
No, I think I always tell people you got to find something that's sustainable, something that you can do on a daily basis. With how do you work with females when you tell them they need to eat more? Because I feel like it's such a mind,
Yeah.
it messes with their mindset of like, I got to eat more. Like, that can't be it. But it's like, no, you got to eat more for you to gain more muscle and also lose fat. So, how do you get them over that hump of them realizing they need to eat more?
I mean, that's all that I do mostly is just we just talk people off the ledge of,
Yeah,
when they're, I mean, that's really what it is. And so, I think once we break it down for people and actually give them the science behind why we're so my whole thing is the education. I don't just want to tell you how to do something. I need you to understand why because you can't unknow something once I tell you. So my passion is the education. So we will go with you, explain the science behind it, and women can wrap their heads around that more. And the reality is that women are they're not eating a ton of food like volume.
Hmm.
They're eating high calorie foods that they don't even realize because the media goes on this whole healthy fat kick the past 5-10 years. So women think they have to be eating avocados and almonds and
Yeah.
salmon and all of these things every day, and they're so high in calories. So what I see most in my company is that they're coming to me and they're saying, Pam, we cannot lose weight. Like we are eating like a bird, we barely eat and we're gaining weight. So, okay, we do the whole like, let me see what you're eating, show me a 3-day log. And they're in a calorie surplus or at least a calorie maintenance because they're eating such high fat foods that are more than double, calories per gram than protein and carbs. Fat is 9 calories per gram. Carbs and protein are 4. Why carbs ever got a bad rap? Like I will never really
Yeah.
understand that. We need carbs so much for energy. I mean, good carbs. I'm not talking like, Captain Crunch. I'm talking, sweet potatoes and rice and
Sure.
sourdough and oats and then not to mention fruit are carbs. So it's like let's, get our
It's my
carbs
favorite kind. Yeah.
beautiful places. And so that's kind of what happens is that I do end up having them eat more food, but it really doesn't end up being more calories.
Hmm.
So
That's
I
a good
think
point.
that's able to help them, like when they see that. So yes, they're eating more, but they know that it's not that they're eating more calories, and then they're fuller and they're happier. And a lot of times, yeah, women are like, "Pam, we can't eat all this food."
Yeah, totally. My wife's gone through that. She's like,
Mhm.
and I mean, it took, but it is interesting. It's hard for them mentally to get over that
Yeah,
hump of
it's all
they've been told their
mental.
whole life. And honestly, too, it goes to the goals of, I think, what women maybe used to want to look like to kind of how
Mhm.
they want to look like now. It's changed a lot.
Oh, it's changed so much. And you know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, if you wanted to be like that super skinny kind of look, I mean, you could pull it off. If
But you're probably
that's
not healthy though, right?
right. And so that's the thing. But then what happens is once you're approaching 40, because remember when you're about age 30, you're losing on average 3% of muscle mass a year for women. Okay. So that's why when you start to hit 40 and plus and your body's looking different, but maybe you're still the same weight, but your body's looking different and you're like, what the heck is happening? I
Hmm.
don't understand. It's because you probably are only doing cardio. You're already losing the 3% a year. Then you're only doing cardio, which is going to be burning off more of that muscle if you're not counteracting it with weight training.
Hmm.
And so, you know, that's why we don't look good as middle aged plus just being skinny. Like we have to have that tone,
Sure.
and the only way to get the tone is to lift weights properly
Yep.
and
Why
then
do you,
fuel it with the protein.
why do you think there has been a shift in the goals of how what females want to look like? Because it was like I remember in high school, girls wanted to be just like skinny, and now they want to be strong. They want to be fit. They want to
Mhm.
have like muscle mass. What do you think like spurred that?
Social media, I think, had a
Okay.
lot to do with it. And then really kind of just, you know, idolizing these beautiful women athletes like
Hmm.
the soccer players and the gymnasts and even gymnast bodies. I mean, oh my
They're
goodness, how much
incredible.
have
Yeah.
they changed from back in the day when it was like those more thin type of build. So I think, yeah, just like strong women athletes, the track stars, all of that. And then really the narrative around why it's actually important to have muscle.
Hmm.
And that's for my age range. Yes, aesthetics is always going to be that, like, of course you want to look good, but the longevity piece is just as important for my clients. We have kids, like we're aging. I mean, we want to be able to like still rock it when we're in our 70s with our grandkids. And so that longevity piece is really important.
Yeah, no, totally. You want to live healthier, but also, or live longer, but also live healthier
Right.
longer.
Correct.
With with things of you growing your business, what are some of the more, you know, challenging things that you've had to maybe pivot from or refocus, or maybe different things that you provide? Like, how did you try to figure out what you were best at and make sure that's the deliverable to the people you work with?
I think all of this is overwhelming.
Hmm.
There's so many options you can do. Which one is right? I have no idea. And I think just wrapping my head around like picking one thing and sticking to it and giving it enough time to see where it goes before trying to add in like all of these other courses, all of these
Hmm.
other challenges, all of these other programs. So that's what I did. I developed Bringing Sexy Back. I only focused on that for an entire year. And I, got all of my feedback. I got all my results, of people like the before and after, all the testimonials. And then I had all this information. And I had all these people telling me like what they loved about the program. And then I also had followers and people telling me like, Pam, I wish you had a less expensive program.
Mm,
I just want to dip my toes into something. I just want to, I don't, they're scared to commit, right? That
sure.
amount of money, that amount of time. So then from that information, I knew I wasn't guessing,
Yeah, you
right? I
listen to your
knew
clients. Yeah.
what the people needed. So then I developed 30 Day Slay, and that's the dipping of the toes in, that's the taste testing. And, um, and I have a couple other like smaller things here and there, but I think overwhelm is what is the demise of so
Hmm.
many people, whether it's in the weight loss, weight training, fitness, health journey, or the business journey, or the relationship, whatever it is. I think it's the overwhelm. And so, and I know that for myself too.
Sure.
It's like sometimes there's so much, and then you become paralyzed. You're like,
You
I'm
need to
just not going to
focus on
even
what
do
you're good
anything.
at. Yeah.
Or then you become this like, oh my gosh, you're just throwing everything out there.
Hmm. I've fell victim to that before. Like,
Same.
and then you just got to rein yourself back in and refocus and realize you don't have to do all of this stuff. You got to figure out what you're good at,
Yeah.
and that will
And
lead you to some other things.
and I think, me having my own business coach and, doing different things, throughout my life. I mean, I have a ton of experiences to know like, you know, where I need assistance with or
Hmm.
where I need to grow or where I need to like rein it in. And so, I was finally able to find something that I was, able to put all of those different scenarios into play and just kind of have this, really cool success without totally losing my mind in the process.
Hmm. And like you said, you wake up and you don't feel like it's work every day. So it's
Mhm.
that's the goal for everybody. Is when is your birthday? Are you a Leo?
I am.
Nice.
I am. I'm
You
a
big into
very,
signs?
very proud Leo.
Yeah, I think I'm a Libra, maybe September
When's your
30th.
birthday?
September 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My wife says that our signs go together, so it must be right.
Well, you should just, yeah, listen to her because I'm sure you have no idea.
I don't
Do you
really.
even know what her sign is?
She's a Leo.
Oh, she's a Leo. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Here we go. Well, I'm gonna like her, that's for sure.
All right, so you live in Nashville, or do you live in Nashville or
I live in
surroundings?
Franklin,
Oh, nice, not far.
suburb outside. Mhm.
Um, I've been going to Nashville a lot, but I haven't found like a gym or a place to work out. You got a
Oh,
place for
I
me?
have it for you. Oh my goodness. So my great friends, they own, it's called Carbon Performance. It's the most amazing gym I've ever seen in my
Wow.
entire life. And they have one in Franklin, and then they also have one in the Nations. So in, more downtown Nashville.
Sure.
And I mean, they have everything. It's massive. It is so cool. You have to go there the next time. Let me know and I'll get you set up there.
Okay, perfect. All right, last question. What's your message to females for if they're wanting to change, if they don't feel confident, if they're just been trying stuff and they can't figure it out? What is your message? And when you're speaking to like all your clients, like this past weekend or something, what are you trying to leave with to help motivate and inspire?
That it can absolutely be you. I think that women think that it can't be them, that it won't work for them, that they're going to be that case that it just, doesn't happen. And it can absolutely 100% be you. This is not a matter of like you as an individual. It's a matter of really science and mathematics and just flipping a few of the things that you're
Hmm.
doing to make it work for you. Um, and just start. Like if you just want to start with weight training, start there. If you can only wrap your head around nutrition, start there. So let's take the overwhelm out of it by just picking the one piece that you're comfortable with, because then, the act becomes the motivation. And then we can add in things from there.
I mean, I think that's so good in life in general. Like if you have a goal, whatever, it could be a business, it could be health and wellness, it could be social. Like you just got to start. You got to pick yourself up, get yourself out of bed, and just one step at a time towards those goals. I think it's incredible. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great having you on. Like you're inspiration. You've started a business and you started multiple businesses and you pivoted to a new business and in your 40s. And like you said at the very beginning, these individuals and these entrepreneurs, they didn't start when they were 22. So many of them made their first million when they're 60. You know what I mean? So business wise, health and wellness wise, thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I think people will get a lot out of it. And I'll put your link to your Instagram, to House of Health, all that good stuff in the show notes. But it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, Sam, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Great job.